This set of exercises will just give us some pure practice with our calculation skills. We're first asked to calculate 6 factorial. By definition, 6 factorial is 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. This is reasonably small enough to just do it that way and you get 720. But we are also using this as a practice for getting used to the calculator. So if you wanted to do that on the calculator, the keystrokes would be enter a 6, then do Shift 3, which is the factorial key on your Casio, and that will give you the 720. Next one says 0 factorial. That's the one that you have to remember is just defined to be 1. On the other hand, the calculator can help you out. If you type in 0 and then Shift 3, it will also give you an answer of 1. This says 7 minus 3 quantity factorial. So you work inside the parentheses first, and that just becomes 4 factorial, which of course is 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Again, as a practice on the calculator, you could do 4 Shift 3, and you'll get the same answer, which of course is 24. Here's another, 16 factorial divided by 14 factorial. Just do top and bottom. 16 factorial, of course, is 16 times 15 times 14. Count all the way down to 1 and multiply. 14 factorial is 14 times 13 times 12 times 11, all the way down to 1 and multiply. You could do this by hand, and I will here just for practice, I guess. Because what happens is most of the top cancels out with the bottom, and all you're left with is 16 times 15. So doing some of these that look sort of bad at first by hand, sometimes it's not so bad. On the other hand, we're practicing our calculator skills, so let's do this with the calculator keystrokes. If you want to do this on a calculator, you would enter 16, then Shift 3, which is the factorial. That will give you the answer for the numerator. Then you hit the division key, then you type in 14 and do Shift 3, and that gives you the 14 factorial value, and to make it do the division, you have to press equal. So this is the numerator calculation. This is the denominator calculation. And in order to make it actually show the division result, you have to press equal at the end. And you'll end up with 240. It's the same as before. Another. This time it's a permutation multiplied by a combination. You've got a permutation of 5 things taken 3 at a time, multiplied by a combination of 8 things taken 2 at a time. Again, I'm going to do this by hand just to show you what you would do if you had to do it that way. So if you start off with a permutation of 5 things taken 3 at a time, remember the formula for permutation is n factorial over n minus r factorial. Here n is 5 and r is 3. So it's 5 factorial over 5 minus 3 factorial, which of course we can simplify on the next step. Let's move over and do the combination. The combination formula, if you think of n as 8 and r as 2, is n factorial over r factorial times n minus r factorial. So that would be 8 factorial over the product of 2 factorial and 8 minus 2 factorial. Now simplify this. Go back to the first fraction. 5 minus 3 is obviously 2, so you end up with 5 factorial over 2 factorial. The second fraction is 8 factorial over the product of 2 factorial, and of course 8 minus 2 is 6 factorial. And continuing this, 5 factorial over 2 factorial is really 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 over 2 times 1. And the second fraction is really 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 over 2 times 1 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And notice lots of things will cancel out again in that second. So it's not as bad as it looks. Going back to the first fraction though, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 is 120. 2 times 1 is 2. Moving back to the second fraction, 8 times 7 is 56, and 2 times 1 is 2. And now we're almost done. 120 divided by 2 is 60, and 56 divided by 2 is 28, and 60 times 28 is 1,680. That's a lot of work. How would you do that on your calculator? Well, what would you do? Start off with the permutation. So you put in the 5. The permutation is shift 1. So you do 5, shift 1, then put in the 3, then equal to. 5, permutation 3. Shift 1 is permutation. You have to hit the equal to get it to evaluate. Then you want to multiply that by the combinations. You put in 8, then you do shift 2. Remember, combination is shift 2. Then you put in the 2, and then to get to evaluate, you press equal. And you'll get the same answer, 1680.